Hello, upper cervical doctors, and welcome back to the UCM podcast. I'm Dr. Bill Davis, founder and CEO of UCM Practice Growth Systems, and your host for today's podcast. Excited to be with you once again as we dive into a topic that is super practical and is an extremely important piece of a thriving upper cervical practice, and that's how to do a great weekly team training. In these past few podcast episodes, we've been getting very tactical when it comes to upper cervical practice. We've looked at the metrics that matter and how to track those. We've looked at the importance of doing a weekly team meeting. And this is another piece that goes along with that weekly team meeting that is equally as important, and that's to do a weekly team training. Top upper cervical practices consistently do those two things. They have weekly meetings, they have weekly trainings. Frequently, it's on different days. Some of them do them together, but ideally, the most important thing is that you have consistency of doing a weekly team training. So let's get into it and really dive in and find out how you can do this, how you can do it better if you're already doing it, or how you can begin to implement it and what it will take. Building a strong team that creates better patient experiences, better systems, and better practice growth can be done by doing a weekly team training. So this is a guide for you, upper cervical chiropractic clinic directors out there who are ready to transform their practice one training session at a time. So let's talk about why it matters. Why does training matter? Well, because it will help you have better patient experiences. You want your patients to have consistent experiences in your office. Consistent training will ensure that patients will get that warm, professional, confident interaction consistently. Also, you'll have greater consistency when it comes to your systems. You want your systems, your milestones, the principles you want to teach, those types of things, those scripts that you're using to become second nature. And the only way that that can happen is if you practice them regularly as a team. You want your team to be confident. And the more that they are trained, the more confident they become in communication and in the things that they're doing each day to take care of patients. And you want to have a stronger culture. When you have a team that trains together, the culture gets stronger. It reinforces your mission and helps build a team that believes in what you do. Your practice will never consistently outperform the capability of your team. If you invest in them every single week with training, the team will get better and better and better. So what's the purpose of a weekly team training? It's not about, pushing information across a conference table. It's about shaping the people who represent your practice every day. When your team grows, your practice grows. So what good training does is it builds better communicators who connect better with patients, better problem solvers who handle challenges more effectively, better patient educators who inspire commitment to care, better leaders who take initiative, better teammates who lift those around them. So the real goal isn't to transfer information because information will fade. The goal is transformation, to change how your team thinks, communicates, and shows up every single day. A well-trained team doesn't just follow scripts, they internalize your values and deliver an extraordinary patient experience naturally and consistently because they care about the results. And so how do you make this happen? Number one is you have to schedule it. You have to schedule it like a new patient appointment, right? If you were going to, schedule a new patient, you'd make sure that the office was open, that you were there, that the team was focused on taking care of that new patient. And you want to do the same thing with a weekly training session. Ideally, you want to put it on the same day and the same time every week. If you have a consistent day and time each week, it becomes a more consistent part of the practice culture. routine will remove the resistance to it. Your team will plan around it rather than against it. How long should it be? A minimum of 60 minutes is what we recommend. Many offices will do 90 minutes, right? But the key is at least 60 minutes of focused time-focused training will respect the team, respect the other things they need to do, but also will deliver meaningful development if you structure it in such a way as we would recommend. And don't let it run over. Make sure that you're locked in on your time. Just like the team meeting we talked about last time, you want to make sure that this is a solid time and an efficient time that's being used. Everyone attends, right? We want everyone to come, right? All doctors, all CAs, office managers, new patient coordinator, whoever, everybody comes. We got to make sure that we have everything covered so that nobody has to answer the phone or anything else, right? If it's a time where we're gonna let calls go to voicemail during that time because this is an important time of training, or we have another system in place to be able to capture phone calls during that time. And as I said, no interruptions, right? We don't want people, coming in, patients coming in. We don't want phones ringing. This hour is focused on the growth of the team. And the key here is consistency will beat intensity every time, right? Doing this every week is going to be much more effective than doing like a day-long retreat once a year. So how do you structure this time? A reliable framework that will remove guesswork and make your training session predictable, purposeful, and repeatable is what you're looking for. When your team knows what to expect, they'll come prepared and engaged. So the first thing, just like we do our team meetings, we recommend you start with some wins, right? What are some wins? And if you're doing this every week, you can look back at the last training and say, okay, what we were training on last week, we've been implementing that this week. How's that going? What's the wins associated with that? Okay, well, we did this last week, and this is what happened when I applied that. It worked much better, whatever, right? Those wins, get those training wins, that how the system has improved. You want to open with that positivity. You can share, a patient success story that was associated with something that you trained on recently, a team win, a metric that improved, whatever. You want to get your team energized and understand that these trainings make a difference. Then you want to get into your main or major training topic, right? This is going to be 20 to 30 minutes. We want to deep dive into one focused skill or topic. You want to use real world examples. You want to go through your milestones, your scripting, and you really have a guided discussion to really get the learning anchored. And whenever possible, you want to use actual patient interaction recordings to facilitate this time, right? So if you're training on the new patient phone call, for instance, listen to some actual new patient phone calls, and hopefully you have a system in place like ours that captures all of your new patient phone calls so you can use those in your training. If it's a doctor focused topic, then hopefully you've got a care plan presentation recorded or a consultation recorded or whatever it is. You want to have recordings if at all possible. Also, you may want to divide doctors and team depending on the size of your team. If you have multiple doctors in the practice who aren't necessarily going to be doing front desk tasks or phone tasks, those types of things, then it may be beneficial to break off the teams into doctors training topic and staff training topic at that time. If you have an office manager, they can run the staff training topic, and then you as the clinic director would run the doctor training topic. You can also do a combination of technique training and consultation exam, report of findings training, those types of things as the doctor training at that time. All right. Next, you move into practice and role play. You want to apply what is being taught, pair up, act it out, and refine in real time. This is where the real learning happens, right? You got to role play in order to improve. Lastly, you do two final things. One is you just open it up to questions. You open up the floor. You want to surface any confusion. You want to encourage curiosity. You want to address anything that came up during practice. And then lastly, you want to have some commitments. Every team member leaves with at least one concrete commitment. This is where training will turn into results. So let's get more into each of these topics as we go through this more. So what are some topics that you can focus on, right, during that core part of the training? Answering the phone, right? How do we do that new patient phone call effectively? Patient consultations, financial conversations, scheduling. How do we effectively schedule so that we reduce gaps and no-shows? Reactivation. How do we get people who are inactive back, right? What does that system look like? The new patient experience, how to wow people from day one, right? Every aspect of that new patient experience can be trained on. Handling objections, right? You want to understand how to have graceful responses under pressure. Office communication, make sure that the communication between team members is clear and effective. And then generating reviews and referrals. How do you do that? What do you do in order to do those types of things? And you want to train skills, not just knowledge, right? It's not just a matter of knowing things, but it's a matter of being able to do them, right? So taking the knowledge and then practicing it, applying the skill repeatedly in a safe environment. That's where the role playing comes in. And then getting feedback, right? Receiving honest, supportive coaching in real time is key with this, and that will help to improve confidence. Your team is going to feel more capable and prepared for real situations when you have taken them through good role playing, which will lead to more consistency, right? Delivering the skill reliably across all situations. And that's why role playing is essential, right? Somebody, if you're practicing a new patient phone call, you got one person who is pretending to answer the phone. The other person is the patient, right? If it's an interaction between a new patient and a doctor, then someone's the new patient, someone's the doctor. You role play that. If it's a difficult patient, then you have someone be the doctor and someone be the difficult patient, or someone be the doctor, or someone be the CA and someone be the difficult patient, right? Role playing is essential for every different things you want to practice. And you want, as I mentioned, you want to use real patient, real practice examples whenever possible. Actual phone calls, right? Reviewing recorded phone calls, actual patient interactions. If you don't have recordings of them, walk through actual patient interactions. So the other day, Mrs. Jones said this, and I wasn't sure how to answer it. Okay, great. Let's talk through that, right? Let's train through that. Let's role play that. Google reviews and stories, right? How do we capture reviews from happy patients? How do we get them to take that step of filling out a Google review for us, or of recording a video testimonial for us? And then what do we do when someone misses an appointment or doesn't show up or is always late or whatever it may be? How do we handle those kind of situations? What will also help as you start to do this, as you start to build this regularly, is to build out a yearly training calendar. When you do this, it's going to help you to be more focused when the weeks come, especially if you can say, okay, so here's this month we're doing this, next month we're doing that, and so forth. And you can kind of dial in these different things and get into more of like training categories that you can rotate through. Some training categories could be, communication and scripting, patient education, service excellence, leadership and mindset, office systems and workflow, technology and software, patient value communication, generating referrals, generating reviews, generating video testimonials, clinical workflow support, all of these different topics, kind of broad topics. And then you can break them down into weekly trainings that cover that broader topic. And that's, if you plan ahead, it's going to be much more effective. You're going to get through everything over a year. Now, you obviously can adapt things based on need of the practice, but it's always nice to be able to have things planned out so that you can get some massive improvements over time. You also want to involve your team, right? Training shouldn't always come from the clinic director, right? You want to have team members lead sessions. If you got a team member that's really great at a particular aspect of the practice, have them lead the session. Have them talk about what they do and why they do it, why they say things the way they do, or what's the principle that they're focusing on there, or how they're exuding the core value of the practice there, right? You've got great people who might be in different parts of the team that can make an impact on everyone else by walking through different principles. And so you may have, a new patient coordinator, or a front desk person, or an office manager, or, marketing person, or a finance specialist, whatever the different team roles that you have within the team, they may be able to train on things that would be applicable to others. You also want to use your training sessions as an opportunity to reinforce your practice culture, right? You want to consistently point your team back to the why, right? Remind the team why we're here, why we exist. How does this particular thing that we're working on directly impact our mission, right? Because that's really important. We answer the phone this way because of our mission, right? We talk to patients this way because of our mission. Same thing with the core values, right? When you have core values that are very clear and the team knows them, we talk about like, hey, this is an example of our core value. When we do it this way, it's an example of this core value. And this can also, lead into even vision. Like we have, hey, our vision is this and that. When you paint that picture of where the practice is headed, you talk about, hey, if we do this and we continue to improve on this, we'll get there faster. And really, it comes down to a patient experience standard, right? You want your patients to experience a high level of care and excellence in your practice. And so training will help to ensure that. And every time you do a training, you always want to end with action items, right? You close a training session with something like this. Before ending, ask each team member to complete the sentence, "This week I will," right? And have them write it down. Have them put it where they sit so that they're reminded of that. "This week I will smile every time I pick up the phone," right? And they write it down. They make that commitment. They say, "Yes, I'm going to do that." Right? "This week, I will ask at least one patient per day for a Google review. This week, I will keep my consultations to 10 minutes or less," whatever, right? Make a commitment, end with an action item, get that commitment from the team, and that's going to help the training sessions be more effective. Some common training mistakes to avoid: either not scheduling it, or not having a schedule for the actual time, or just having random topics, right? Without a plan, training will get skipped. It'll get reduced to just like announcements or whatever. Inconsistency signals that development isn't really a priority. Another mistake is for you or a team member just to kind of lecture rather than having a time of actual practice, right? You don't want to just have the team passively listening. The team needs to practice what they're learning, and that will help to improve retention of whatever's being taught on and will lead to better behavior change. And then having no accountability, having nothing at the end that says, okay, now that we've learned this, we're making a commitment to do this week, right? This is how we're going to do it. Another thing is trying to do too much at once, right? Focus in on something that is very specific and tangible each week rather than trying to do too many different things at once. And then the last mistake to avoid is just canceling when you're too busy, right? Make this a priority. Don't cancel trainings just because the practice is busy. Busy practices need training the most. Another thing to keep in mind is training is an investment. And like any investment, it should produce measurable results. When you track key indicators, key performance indicators regularly, it will confirm that your weekly sessions are translating into real improvements in your practice. That's why these last 3 podcasts are so important to listen to together. When you have metrics that you're tracking, you have a meeting each week where you're looking at those metrics as part of the meeting, and then you have a training and training sessions that can be focused on improving the metrics that aren't where you want them to be, then it makes an impact across the board, right? You want to see your conversion improve on the phone, for instance, of people who are calling the practice or leads who are filling out a form online, the conversion of them to a booked appointment, then you've got to track that, right? You got to train on that. And then you can see how the training impacts the number, or your consultation quality, what percentage of patients are coming back for day 2, or your PVA number, right? When you put different training things in place to encourage people to finish out their care plans or transition into wellness care or whatever, and you can see the PVA number increase, or your referrals. If you're talking about referrals, you're making referral statements and you see your referral number increase, or your Google reviews, you can see those increase because you're asking people for reviews, or your video testimonials, the same thing. And ultimately what this will do is your team confidence will continue to improve as they can see, hey, what we're doing here, like the metrics that we're tracking, the meetings that we're having, the trainings that we're doing each week, these are all making the practice better, and that's leading to everyone winning. The other thing to keep in mind is great training never ends. When you make a commitment to training in the practice, that means that every week you have a focused session where a skill is reinforced, then that leads to measurable improvement every month in your metrics. And every year your team gets dramatically better because they've had 52 training sessions during that week, which has made them more capable, more confident, and more aligned to what you're doing as a practice. So let me challenge you, Doc. If you have never put a consistent training schedule into your practice, commit to doing it for 90 days. 1 hour, block out 1 hour on the calendar. And if you need to do it 3 weeks out, do it 3 weeks out, right? But get it on the calendar. Start to focus on, okay, what's our one topic we're going to focus on that day? And then get started on that. And then start to build a training schedule. If you do it for 90 days straight with no cancellations, no exceptions, you're going to dramatically start to see your practice improve, your team culture, your communication, your confidence, and the metrics that matter. As long as you're tracking them and you're having those team meetings to look at them, you'll see all of that continue to improve. Remember, Doc, your team is your greatest investment. Your equipment matters, your adjusting matters, your marketing matters, your systems matter, all that stuff matters. But every one of those investments is limited by the people delivering them. A great system run by an undertrained team produces average results. A great team can make even an average system extraordinary. So when you train consistently, you develop intentionally, you will watch your practice grow. And so encourage you, get going with this. And if you want our help, we love helping practices to build systems to help them grow, including training systems and all of these types of things. Just go to ucmgrow.com and we will help you grow your upper cervical practice. Thank you, Doc, for being with us again on the UCM podcast. And as we always say around here, go team upper cervical.